Welcome back to another episode of the Plate Up Podcast. This is episode 13. Once again, we are back. It is D Hod, the Coov, and JD Hugh. What is going on, fellas?
How's it
What
going?
is going on?
Nothing much, man. We're going to go ahead and kick it off into the weekly catch up. Mr. JD, how was your week and what you've been playing, brother?
Man, week's been pretty good. It's been kind of hit and miss. We had a schedule change on the streaming, so we now do Mondays. We try and do Wednesdays, depending on what's going on at community game night, and then we do Thursdays and sometimes Fridays. So it's been a pretty good week. You know, got a new truck this week, so pretty excited about that. But other than that, that's really all we've been into. Warzone is all we've been trying to do. Streaming with some new people, which was always fun. Me and Coov streamed with Simple Idiot and Idiot. Oddly enough, both their names. But ended up being pretty good. They're kind of close to our skill level, so it made it a little bit funner when everybody knew what they were doing and worked in lockstep. It made the night really good. So kind of what I've been up to. D, what have you been up to?
Man, for me, it's been actually pretty chill this week. I did something that I have not done since before the entire pandemic kicked off. And ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm getting old because I tried to play basketball for the first time in a year and a half, and boy, I feel it everywhere in my entire body. My whole thing about this entire pandemic was to be, actually respect the virus going on, and listen to doctors and CDC guidelines and basically do my part to, social distance. So I told my wife I won't go play basketball. I'll stay in the house. And so I've done just that. But I did tell her once I'm vaccinated and good to go, if she's cool with it, I'll go start getting back in there again. And man, my body is killing me 2 days later. I feel good though. I was happy to get back in the gym. I actually went to the gym yesterday with my son so we can go do some drills and stuff because I'm trying to help him like make his high school team and everything. So that was pretty good. But other than that, man, it's just been kind of hanging out around the house. Work was cool this week. Very chill. Oh, almost forgot. Thursday had a complete blowout of my front left tire, my driver's side front tire, on the way to work. I was on the highway, had been driving maybe a mile, and then I just heard what sounded like a huge rock hit the front of my car. So I thought it was a rock. And then, as you drive a little bit more, you hear boom, 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 boom. So I heard it, pulled over to the side, looked down, huge blowout. So needless to say, I didn't go to work Thursday. I had to get a tire replaced. And other than that, man, I mean, it didn't really upset me. I was cool. I just got it fixed, which took damn near all day. Had, let my boss know and they let me out of work. And then after that, Ghost of Tsushima, man. I'm in Act 3 finally. That game is so fun. And as you progress, the one thing I like about it is there are some games where they allow you to, you know, depending on how motivated you are, you can just go grab all the big upgrades early. Ghost of Tsushima isn't that way. You have to earn them as the story goes along. So it's like as you get further in the game, your power and skill progresses. I love that, and it makes for a very fun game. And I'm almost done. I'm having a blast with it. I may, depending on where I am towards the end of the game, I may go ahead and pursue the platinum on that one. It's that fun. But that's it for me, Mr. Coov. How's your week and what you've been playing, brother?
I mean, you've been talking so much about Ghost of Tsushima lately. It's like I really want to play it, but I haven't dusted off my PS4 since I got my PC. So it's like, do I just break down and do it? Do I hope I get a PS5 in 3 years when they finally have enough and then I play it, or wait till they port it to PC? I don't know, but I might have to play it. As for me, what I've been playing, I mean, Judy kind of talked about. We played some Warzone this week. Community night was actually a lot of fun. We played Scribble, which is kind of like Pictionary. So we all try to test out our drawing skills with a mouse. And then we moved over to Gartic Phone. So if you've ever played Telestrations, it's kind of like that. But the premise is you type a phrase, the next person draws what they think the phrase is. Then it hands that drawing off to a person who has to type in what they think it is. Then it goes to the next person who then has to draw what they type. So by the end, like you play telephone, by the end, does it really match the original thing? We laughed so hard playing that game. It was so much fun. And then I started streaming a new game. I started streaming Biomutant. So this is a new game that came out by THQ Nordic. It's a lot of fun. Like it's surprisingly a lot of fun. So you play a raccoon, a rodent of some sort. It's like takes place in the future. It's Earth because they talk about humans and how humans have destroyed the planet and they mutated it with all their toxic waste, and these creatures evolved out of that. But it's an action-based fighting game, or it's a action RPG, and it's kind of like your hack and slash a little bit. But it's actually a lot of fun, and it's kind of fun how they name things. Like these are all animals, these are all critters that have evolved, and they're naming human things. So like the microwave was the electric zapper, I think is what they called it. The washing machine was the clothes wetter. So it's just kind of fun what they do. Their name for a toilet is kind of funny. It's the Big Flush, where the humans would dispose of their yellow juice and their brown bops. So there you go. Yellow juice and brown bops is my new phrase. You can use that with your kids. But other than that, as for what's going on the home front, we're still fostering the puppies. My wife was loving and kind enough to watch them all day yesterday, so I could have a day of gaming. But today was my day to watch them, and they're exhausting. I can tell you that much. But that's it for my week.
All right.
D, I know you said that you had a car issue on Thursday. Same here. My alternator died on Thursday outside my kids' preschool. After I picked them up, got them in the car, and then I hit it in reverse. Nothing. It just died on me, and that was it. Which led to the new truck.
It's a really expensive fix.
Yeah.
I've been there before. Well, that is it on the weekly catch up, and that is going to move us on over into the news corner. So, Mr. Coov, what is your first news story, my good man?
I'm excited for my news story. So I'm a big fan of the Portal games, Portal 1 and Portal 2. In traditional Steam fashion or Valve fashion, they will never make a third because they don't believe in thirds of games, apparently. Just like Half-Life and Half-Life 2, but no 3. But the great J.J. Abrams is going to make a movie for Portal. He said the script is starting to be written, so expect it in the next few years. I'm excited to see how his vision of Portal is going to be put on. I expect a lot of fun Portal mechanics in the movie, some great special effects, I'm hoping, and you have to keep Gladys. And I hope you keep the same voice of Gladys because her condescending tone is just amazing.
And I never played the Portal games, but I mean, I've always watched footage of them. I've never played them myself, and they look extremely fun and addicting. And I've seen people like the people that do play them they speak highly of those games. And every time something is announced for them, they get like overly excited. And I've read your news article when you were saying that. And I was reading the comments, and people seem like genuinely excited about this, especially with J.J. Abrams attached to it. So this could be huge news, man, for that franchise. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. All right, JD, what do you got for us?
I've never heard of Portal games, so
Of course.
the movie should be exciting.
This might not surprise our listeners, but JD Hugh doesn't know what we're talking about.
I'm looking forward to the movie version. It's like skipping the book right there. All right, mine is going to be one that everybody knows, right? Amazon is buying MGM Studios for $8.45 billion. And while the content of MGM is exciting, they have Rocky and things like that are there. They have a lot of different, just older type movies that are there. It's not really why Amazon is buying them. That's the biggest thing. Amazon is buying them because Amazon is trying to become a new Netflix in competition-wise with their Amazon Video. And they're buying MGM not for the older movies, which will help them compete, but they're buying them because they want the creative artists and studios and script writers and stuff at MGM to help accelerate Amazon's original content. So while they're getting these great movies, that is not their intent. They're just trying to make their self look better and compete directly with Netflix. So pretty exciting news there as the world of on-demand TV continues to grow to compete Prices hopefully stay flat with Amazon, but as everybody knows, every time you turn on Amazon Prime subscription goes up. So we'll find out what this is going to cost us down the road, as well as the $1 billion Lord of the Rings series that Amazon is throwing out there. So hopefully it's good content, but hopefully we don't see a dramatic price increase with it. But again, good content going to be coming their way.
I mean, Amazon has some good original content. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Jack Ryan is one of my favorites. Can they fix their browser, though? I have to say, out of all the stream services out there, theirs is the least user-friendly. Because you select one, it's like, oh, I'm a Prime subscriber. Great, I'm going to watch a movie. And then you click on it, it's like, buy it for $6 because it's not included in Prime. I'm like, but then why'd you put it in the Prime list? So they need to take some of that billion and fix that. But otherwise, I'm excited to watch all the James Bonds if they do put them up for streaming. And, of course, Lord of the Rings once that finally comes out.
Yeah, I'm excited about this acquisition. I mean, to me, it just adds more fire to the streaming, kind of war going on right now. I think that Amazon personally, they have a really good of all the streaming platforms, I think Amazon is the best priced because it's all inclusive with their whole Amazon deal, with the Prime thing. Having Amazon Prime touches so many other things outside of Amazon that it's worth the price. You pay your annual price and then there you go for the year. You're good. So I enjoy that. Adding the MGM, I mean, all you had to do is say James Bond and I'm in. I'll watch all the Bonds just off of the acquisition alone. And then, obviously when they bring the other properties in, it should be good too. But Amazon has a very underrated library that I don't feel people gush about enough. They do have a ton of movies. Like you said, their originals, really awesome. Fleabag was a Amazon one that was really good. Like they have some very good originals. Upload was a good one that I watched. Like they have some good stuff, man. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm with Coop there. I think if their user interface for their Prime Video section was better, I think they would get more people. They lost me, not obviously, but they lost me using the Amazon Prime content because I'm like Coop. Every time I went to go watch something I thought was there, it was buy or rent, and I'm like, I'm sick and tired of this crap. I'm just gonna go to Netflix. And when I compared Netflix and Amazon Prime, they almost had the exact same stuff that they had available on Netflix was available on Amazon, which was kind of tilting. Because if I couldn't find it on Netflix, I expected I should be able to find it on Amazon as part of their free content because they're, kind of monitoring each other, whatever the case is. But it seems like they're in handshaking mode with all the other on-demand services. So it's kind of disappointing, but I think if they got their online user interface better, I think it would hold a lot more viewers and a lot more subscribers.
Well, let's go kick it over to my news story. And of course, if you follow this podcast since the beginning, then it's time to go ahead and take a drink because I've got some more Spider-Man news for you. And that is, it is being reported this week that the Spider-Man No Way Home movie that is coming out is now going to be introducing the Sinister Six with Norman Osborn, played by Willem Dafoe, leading as the Green Goblin as the main villain of No Way Home. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been asking for the Sinister Six to make its way to the big screen for years and years. And it looks like they are finally starting to get it, the pieces put in place to set that up. And that also goes along with the news that Aaron Johnson, who played Kick-Ass, and also Pietro Maximoff as Quicksilver in the MCU will be coming back to play Kraven the Manhunter. And if you remember the cartoon, you remember how badass Kraven was. He was hunting down Spider-Man, and it makes sense considering how, Far From Home ended with Peter being outed as Spider-Man and all this stuff, that Kraven the Manhunter would be somewhere in there to come look for Spider-Man. So it makes sense. And dude, the MCU is what they're doing right now, setting up everything is incredible. So I'm excited to see the Sinister Six come to the big screen.
I mean, you want to talk about, I know I'm pulling from DC, but like an Injustice League for sure. It's the Sinister Six for Marvel. I mean, the collection of some of the greatest Spider-Man villains I had to go up against. I mean, you had Doc Ock, and there's always a rumor about, we're pulling from the earlier Doc Ock coming in. Electro, Kraven the Hunter, yet Vulture. So I'm kind of hoping they bring him back for that movie. And then was the Green Goblin part of the original Sinister Six? I don't remember. That's really a question for D.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know JD doesn't know. But yes, I'm excited to see podcast. You can't see what's going on. You don't want to. I'm excited to see the Sinister Six. I'm looking forward to it. And I mean, just again, with this whole multiverse that they're setting up for the MCU and all the TV shows, I'm really excited to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, same here. Someone is not as a huge comic book fan as Kuda would just like recently pointed out to everybody in the world. I think that anytime as Marvel continues to develop its universe, I think it's exciting for the non-comic book view or readers who are going to view this stuff. That's going to be pretty excited about it because again, it's new content. It's adding different dynamics into it. Again, if you're not familiar with this type of stuff, then you go, "Wow, that's really cool." Whereas a lot of you guys are like, "Oh yeah, it's just like book 13, episode 7 out of the comic books," But the rest of us are just like, "Hey, this is new. It's great. It's creative. I love it."
It's episode 9. You need to get it. Issue 9. Issue 9.
Well, that is it for the news corner this week, and that is going to push us on over into the topic of this week. We told you it was going to get real nostalgic, baby, and it is time to go ahead and reach back to our childhoods. And this week's topic is shows that made our childhoods. So we have compiled our list. I can assure you this was probably the hardest one we have all had to put together, and that is narrowing down 5 shows that made our childhood because there are so many. So we're going to go ahead and jump on into this thing. Mr. J.D. Hugh, your first one, please, sir.
My first one, I'm going to kick it old school, cartoon style, before cartoons were cartoons, and we're going Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, if you didn't like the cartoon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's something wrong with you in my age, okay? You were even the poorest of poor, which was me, right? We had a trailer where the washing and dryer fell through the floor because it rusted out. We were poor, okay? We were poor, and we still had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because it was free. And we loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was great. The cartoons were good. The storylines were good. You had Shredder in there. Of course, he always magically got away from the Turtles, and it was great. It obviously every kid around my age, and we're talking like 5, 6, was sitting here watching Teenage Mutant Turtle. Everybody who grabbed the stick thought they were, the purple one, and everybody who had little kind of like forks thought they were, Raphael. And so, I mean, it was really cool. It obviously, made a lot of kids. They have the movies today. They're not nearly as good, in my opinion. I love the cartoons. The original cartoons were the best. Of course, when you go back and watch it today, you're just kind of like, maybe not. But back in the day, they were pretty lit.
All right, JD, I have to ask you, favorite Ninja Turtle?
Man, probably Raphael. He's the reason he loved pizza. Hey, I'm a fat kid at heart. Love it as well. Bring it on. He's always the guy. Raphael was always the one to say, "Man, can't we just go get pizza?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. I'm on par with you, man."
I mean, you're right. Every kid, especially in our generation, knows Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Pizza loving, sewer living, owned by a rat.
Owned by a
rat. Party dudes. That's what they were. They were party dudes who just kicked butt later with the Foot Clan, who were not very good with their feet. But I love the cartoons. My favorite was, as you put it, the purple guy, or Donatello. He was my favorite one because he had that bow staff, and I just kind of loved the bow staff. The original movies, though, I thought were pretty good. Like, I'm talking that like animatronic people in a suit movie, not the new CGI ones. They were really good. Well, the first maybe 2. The third one where they go back into Japan, feudal Japan, not so much. But like the first one was awesome. The second one you brought in Rocksteady and Bebop, the two, the Rhino and the Mutant Boar.
Yeah.
Shredder just got bigger and meaner. I mean, there's so much that I loved about the Ninja Turtles.
Well, this is like probably easily one of the top 3 shows of my childhood. I knew without a question it was going to make it on one of our lists, and this was the show for me and my siblings. I mean, there was 4 of us. So naturally, 3 boys, my sister was the youngest. everybody got to be a Ninja Turtle, and that's what we would do. We would all sit there and just play Ninja Turtles all the time. Now, being the oldest, I always thought Michelangelo was the coolest, but I naturally fell into that Leonardo leadership role. So I was always a Leo guy. One, he had swords. Two, he was in charge and kind of ran the team. So I always enjoyed the Ninja Turtles. And like you said, the movies, they came out. Dude, I just watched the first movie like a couple months ago. I still remember entire sections of dialogue of that movie, man. I love that movie to death. I remember watching it on VHS so much. We memorized the commercial before the movie. It used to have like a Pizza Hut commercial before on the VHS. And it'd be a little kid, he was in the baseball field. They hit a pop fly to him and he catches the ball with his eyes closed. And then they go to Pizza Hut afterwards. And then it would cut into the movie. And then the movie comes on. And, the first one was crazy. The second one, just as memorable with Kino and, Super Shredder. Vanilla Ice with the Go Ninja rap, like, dude, the
Go
Ninja
Ninja,
Turtles,
go Ninja, go.
Ninja rap, like we remember these movies so much, man, and it made our childhood, bro. I love the Ninja Turtles, man. This was like probably one of the most epic shows for kids around that time, man. It really was.
So D, was Leonardo your favorite, or that was just the one you kind of fell into?
It was kind of, I would say it was more Michelangelo, but Leo was kind of like my guy because he was, the leader and, he kind of came off as like the big brother, who had to take care of everybody else. And so, being the oldest of four, that just kind of was like my natural thing.
Very nice.
Michelangelo was always the coolest to me, though. I mean, one, nunchucks is by far the coolest martial arts weapon you could get. Two, he was the cool guy who just all he wanted to do was eat pizza, crack jokes, party all the time. Like, of course, what kid wouldn't love that? Give me a pair of nunchucks, I get to eat pizza and party all the time. You damn right, man. So, yeah.
I mean, we all know JD's real favorite Ninja Turtle is the Master of Disguise for the Turtle Club. That's his favorite. He's turtly enough for the Turtle Club.
For all of you listeners who didn't catch us when we talked about movies that were garbage, that's from Master of Disguise with 0 stars, 0 ratings.
Go back and listen to that episode.
All right, Mr. Coov, your first one, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to go to a childhood game show that I loved watching when I was young. It was hosted by Mark Summers. He went on to do Food Network and did like a candy show and talking about candies. But Mark Summers was just like that wholesome host. And I liked Mark Summers. I actually got to meet him when they opened up the Nickelodeon studios in Orlando, Florida. I went and I was like on the show, even though it was just for the audience that was there on the tour. So I got to meet him and he was a really cool guy. But I'm talking about Double Dare. This was a contest game show between two teams of kids that had to complete the grossest and the dirtiest things to win. They had I think they had to answer trivia, and then they would have to do this physical challenge, and they were always extreme. But you can't forget being elbow deep in a boogery nose.
Right.
And every kid had to do it. I mean, they just got up there picking for gold just to get to the final dare. I love the show. They brought it back recently, and they brought Mark Summers back, and they brought Liza Koshy, who's a YouTube personality, onto it. I haven't seen any of the new stuff. I don't want to taint my memory with the new stuff, but that's going to be my first for my favorite childhood memory.
Yeah, who didn't love Double Dare? I mean, it was like a Nickelodeon everything, right? I mean, it was slime, it was contestants, it was competition, it had kids in it. I mean, it was just everything. I always remember the nose, man. As soon as you said Double Dare, that's the very first thing that pops into my mind is the damn nose with the boogers and them climbing in it and coming out with green slime on them. You're just like, God, it's gross. But fantastic game show. Absolutely loved it.
And I talked to my wife and I told her, I said, one thing like that doesn't get enough praise is Mark Summer as a host. He was just as big of a host in the 90s as most of the guys, that we know. Dude, he was the quintessential childhood host for, because Double Dare was the game show for kids. It really was. Or it was one of, a couple game shows they had. But Mark Summers was that guy, man. And Double Dare was the game. Like you said, when you say Double Dare, for all kids who remember that show, the nose. We all remember watching the kid. They had to get the flag out of there, and you had to reach up there and pull all that stuff out to grab this one flag. Or the kids diving into the little kiddie pools full of slime and had to dig through until they found a flag. Or, it'd be like foam or something that they had to dig through to get a flag. But Double Dare looked like the most amazingly fun time ever, man. Nickelodeon had a real hit back in the day with that one.
Yeah, back before they got weird, Nickelodeon used to be a really fun place for kids to hang out. Now it's like today.
Well, they closed Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, like the little tour that they had. That's all shut down now. They turned it into something else. I just don't know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that was good stuff back then.
It was. Yeah.
All right, D, hit us.
All right, my first one, man. You know what? I was trying to jump around of which one I wanted to do first, and I guess I'll go ahead and just go. We'll go live action on this one, and that is, well, there's a guy who's been around for decades and decades. We're talking about he has had a run, and I mean since the 80s. This dude has been a star since he first came on the scene, and it seemed like for a period of time, for about a good 20 years, everything he touched turned to gold, and that is Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Ladies and gentlemen, you talking about one of the coolest characters to ever hit TV. If you were a kid and you watched this show, you wanted to be exactly like Will Smith. Why? He was cool. He had the funny dialogue. He had all the cool clothes. Everything he did was with his own style and own, swagger to it. The show was hilarious. His interaction with this is about a kid who's in Philadelphia, born and raised. And one day he gets in a fight on his school. Mom gets upset, sends him to his family's house out in California. He pulls up, and his family is rich. They got money. They live in Bel Air. And now all of a sudden, it's a fish out of water scenario. You got this kid from the hood in Philly living in Bel Air and having to go to prep school and all that. And man, I tell you, it is one of the best sitcoms of all time. It's a classic. You can catch it any day of the week in syndication. And Will Smith became there was a period of time during this run on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will Smith could not be touched. He was the summer blockbuster king. And I mean, he was ripping them off every year. And so, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, A+ show.
Absolutely A+ show, and you're right. There was a run there where Will Smith was in it. You watched it. I mean, Wild Wild West. Anybody else in Wild Wild West, it tanks. Will Smith's in it, almost becomes a damn Emmy, right? I mean, when Will Smith is in anything, people go watch it, right? Not so much today. He kind of lost his nostalgia off of. I think he had that run and then some bad movies, and that was kind of it. But I think you're right. The show itself was hilarious. Everybody wanted to be like Will Smith. Everybody wanted to have the lines and have the smooth way of talking to girls, and always just like his little fun little little things that he did. It was such a great show, and the supporting characters made it really, really good too, right? You had the cousin. What the hell's that guy's name? Short hair, huh?
Carlton.
You had Carlton on there. You had the dad. And I think all the supporting characters made the show just as funny. But definitely Will Smith was the star of that show.
I mean, when it comes to Fresh Prince, that's again just one of those. It was that lineup with like Full House and Family Matters, and you had Fresh Prince, and it was just awesome.
TGIF.
Yeah, it was TGIF. That's right. All the great shows were on that. I mean, you had the controversy like with the two moms. The first actress did one season, and then she didn't get along with Will, so they fired her, and then you had the other Aunt Vivian for the rest of the show. So, I mean, no show's without its controversy. And I mean, everyone knows the opening rap. Everyone knows the Carlton dance. There's just so many, classic parts from that show.
I had to debate whether I was going to do the rap to introduce that one, but I decided to pass on that one.
I mean, I was going to start saying, this is the story all about how he had his life turned upside down. So I'm going to take a moment. You guys just sit right there. I'll tell you how he became a prince of the township of Bel Air.
Well, that was my pick. Mr. JD, your next one, please, sir.
Oh man, oh man. All right, so we're going to go to, keep it kind of in the game show umbrella as Double Dare. And this was Legends of the Hidden Temple, another competitive game show where kids came on and were able to compete. And they did all these competitions to get to the temple, right? So you eliminated people, you eventually got an emblem, and then you had to go through the temple and collect 2 parts of the emblem so that you could get back. But in every room, there was a challenge, or you could have got taken, or there was nothing. And if your partner gets taken, then your other partner comes in. Of course, it's time. You're trying to make the time and get out. And once you get the gold emblem and they're put together, nobody can touch you. It's just simply your opportunity to get out as fast as possible. It's such a good show. I don't know anybody who ever watched the original Legends of the Hidden Temple and said it was trash. Now, I will say if you go back and watch it today, you're like, I don't know how I was really into this that much, because me and Jenny recently had done that. But overall, I mean, when you were a kid, you got excited. You were like, oh my God, they're getting into that room. Are they going to get captured? They're not going to get captured. And I mean, it was, again, another one of those Nickelodeon lineups that had people there like Double Dare that people just tuned into because it was good, just wholesome fun. There wasn't anything like gross or anything weird about it, but it was a good time and a good competition game.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, like Nickelodeon had a run. I mean, they seriously had a run for kids who, if you're young, if you're not old enough to have seen it, when it was on TV, I'm telling you, man, there was a time before Nickelodeon was run by Dora the Explorer. Like, dude, Nickelodeon had a monster run in like the late 80s, early 90s, man. Like they had some shows, and Legends of the Hidden Temple and that big ass stone face Gomek, like it was the show, man. Like every kid that you knew would run home or go over their friend's house, whoever had cable to watch Nickelodeon, so you could watch Legends of the Hidden Temple. This was a game show that we all wished we could be on. We all wanted to be on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember when Nickelodeon did the mall tours to have tryouts to go on the show, and I would beg my mom, please, please, and I never got my chance, and it's one of my regrets from my childhood, man. I love that show.
Miss Spain.
I always wanted to be a blue barracuda. If I was on the show, I wanted to be on that team. I just felt like they won more, even though it really didn't matter. But I always felt like the blue barracudas were like that top of the line team. Forget the purple parrots; they didn't mean anything. But for me, it was the end. I didn't care about the moat competition. The steps of knowledge were a lot of fun. But for me, it was that end, getting into the temple, looking for that monkey idol in 3 pieces, and just trying to assemble it before the time ran out. It was stress-inducing just to watch. I mean, because they're running through, you have mummies jumping out and trying to grab them, and you're yelling at the TV, it's upstairs, go up a level, I can see it. Why can't you? But I love Legends of the Hidden Temple. They are bringing it back for adults. I don't know how that's going to fare. I'm going to watch it because I'm really curious by it. But you're right, D. It was one that you rushed home to watch, or you went over to a friend's house to watch it because you just wanted to be one of those kids.
All right, Mr. Coov, your next one, sir.
My next one, we're going to go to the cartoon realm, and we're going to do an origin story. Some might even say like an X-Men origin story. So we're going back to what got the Coov into comic books in the first place. And I'm talking about the X-Men cartoon. This was a awesome series. It was my introduction to comics, and specifically the X-Men. From there, it birthed me into the comic book nerd I am today. But this was just it went through the X-Men storyline. It went through the X-Men comics in cartoon form. You had a lot of the original X-Men, Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey, the Beast. But my favorite X-Men was there, and that's Gambit. I don't know why. I just loved Gambit. He could energize those cards and flick them like missiles. He can energize again bow staff. He can energize his bow staff. See, I told you I liked bow staffs as a kid, and use that as a weapon. But it really covered a lot of the really cool X-Men storylines, such as the Sentinels, coming to creation, and Jean Grey turning into the Phoenix, which the Phoenix movie did not do it justice. But that cartoon was always exciting, and I always just loved watching it.
Let me tell you something, Disney, Marvel. You've got 48 hours to announce this and make it happen. I need a Remy LeBeau movie, and I need
Yes.
him to be done right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you something. This is my Disney Plus profile. I'll hold it up in the camera. That is my picture. It is a picture of Gambit, and my name on there is Remy LeBeau. He was my favorite X-Man, specifically because of this cartoon in the 90s. The very first episode, when they introduced Gambit, what is the very first thing you see from Gambit? This man is in a mall buying a deck of cards, buying several decks of cards, and hitting on the girl in the store. And what does she say? He's like, "Oh, do you like to play poker?" "No, I'm a solitaire man myself. Unless I have someone to play with." This is Remy LeBeau to a T. Ladies and gentlemen, the X-Men cartoon is one of the greatest. It probably has the single greatest cartoon theme song of all time. Complete with the visuals of the heroes and the villains running head to head in the intro theme. You ask anybody that watched it during that time and you play the theme, look at the excitement in their face and watch them light up like a damn Christmas tree. It was amazing, and if you missed out on it, that is absolutely your bad. But yes, we need a Gambit movie in the worst way. Now.
I mean, when Sony finally introduced Gambit into their X-Men movies, I was so excited. I was hyped. I was ready for it. And I'll have to admit, the card effect that they did for him charging it up, just showing the purple outline, was really cool. But they did not do him any justice. They made him a coward. He ran away from fights. He was in the movie for just like 10 minutes total screen time. I need an entire movie dedicated to Remy LeBeau.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when Gambit looks more afraid than Aquaman, there's a problem, right? So Gambit was definitely one of the coolest characters from the childhood series that we watched, and then, like you said, in the movies, they just kind of made him look like a wuss, and I was just shocked by that because this character had so much potential. I mean, how did we miss this? I guess is what I would say, and even me, from a non-comic book fan perspective, I remember watching Gambit when I was younger, and he was probably one of the coolest of the X-Men characters. So, kind of curious as to why they really screwed the pooch there. But, X-Men gets rebooted, it seems like every other year. So, there's always possibility he comes back.
I mean, now that they can be absorbed into the MCU, maybe he'll be given his due justice.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm waiting on it, man. I'm waiting. All right, I guess that is going to move it on to my next one, and it's time to go ahead and jump back to Nickelodeon. Ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you this was a show that, as a young black kid, this was very exciting to me because we didn't have a lot of kid shows that starred mainly black stars. And we finally got one. It was a spin-off of a show because these dudes had so much chemistry and they were so great on this kids variety show, all that. They got their own show. And ladies and gentlemen, we got the theme song. Everybody out there, go run and tell your homeboys and homegirls it's time for Keenan and Kel. Ladies and gentlemen, Nickelodeon, we are not BSing you when we tell you that Nickelodeon had a run. They had all the shows in the 90s that made you love them. Like, everything that they touched during the 90s turned to gold. Keenan and Kel, starring Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell, was amazing. It had all the laughs that you ever needed. These were two young kids that were completely hilarious and ahead of their time. These two had so much chemistry on all that they were given their own platform, and they hit a home run and ran. They grabbed the ball and ran with it every week and brought the laughs every week, man. I don't know anybody that saw this show and did not like it. It was awesome.
If you didn't love orange soda before watching this show, you will love orange soda after watching this show.
Damn right.
Kel just loved orange soda. But
Damn right.
I mean, you're right. These two had a run in the 90s with all that. They were hilarious together. They had their spinoff, Keenan and Kel, which was great. They put out one of the best childhood movies I've ever seen with Good Burger.
Home with a Good Burger. Can I take your order?
I mean, it was awesome. Kel did such a good character in Good Burger. I mean, he's just forever going to be known as that character. Whether that's good for him or not, I don't know. They came back and did a skit on SNL for Good Burger when Kenan Thompson was, I think, still new to the cast. So funny. It just brought back so many good memories. My chat's blowing up. My wife had a crush on Kenan during Kenan and Kel time. So that's okay. That's fair. I loved the show. I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah, no, Keenan and Kel was probably one of the two funniest guys that you'll ever watch. I always known him. I remember all of that. I actually remember the theme song to all that. I'm not going to embarrass myself by singing it, but I do remember that. It's basically all that. I do remember Good Burger. This is kind of where they really kind of resonated with me was in Good Burger. Such a funny movie. It was kind of like you look back on it today, like kids today will never understand the stupidity and pointlessness of movies back in the day. They were just good to watch, right? And today they always have to have a purpose and a plot and all this like good stuff. Good Burger was just one of those funny movies that you watch. They had a good burger shop. They opened a competitor opened up called Moss Burger or Moose Burger or something like that, and they were just really big burgers and they were genetically engineered, which is common in today's world. So, but it was just such a good movie, and they played such good characters and they were funny. And I didn't know anybody who didn't watch all that. So you know. I thought, like I said, if you're from the '90s, you know these guys through and through. No question asked.
Right on. All right, Mr. JD Hugh, number 3, please, sir.
Number 3 for me, I'm going to go ahead and bring it with the last animated series that I have on my list, and that is The Simpsons. If you were a kid in the '90s, really the '90s, after that, I think everybody kind of stopped watching The Simpsons and a new generation took over and started watching them. But we were there when The Simpsons was original. All right, we were there when Homer was still figuring out his identity in the show. And I always remember the funnest thing about The Simpsons was always the Halloween specials, right? Everybody tuned in for the Halloween specials because, I mean, Tales of what the Treehouse or something like that.
Treehouse of Horrors.
Yeah, Treehouse of Horrors. Everybody tuned into it because that is where the fun was, and it had nothing to do with regular Simpsons. It was just good, entertaining TV to watch. And you know, I remember even in Japan, this was on AFRTS television, which is Air Force television, basically. And we were able to watch it there as well. So it just shows you the kind of reach that The Simpsons had. People wanted it no matter where they were in the world. It was translated into like 100 different languages or something and broadcasted all over the world. And people loved it. It was just a stupid TV show, but had a lot of stories. Still making it today. That should tell you how well it was. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, if you remember, for those of you too young to have been there during the inception of The Simpsons, it debuted on a little something called The Tracy Ullman Show. And it was just a little skit. That's all it was. Just a little quick skit. They would show it like maybe once in a while, but it got so popular that it spun off into its own thing and ballooned into the animal that it is today. This thing has been going for 30 plus seasons and it's still going strong, dropping new stuff every year. And dude, there was a time when The Simpsons was probably one of the top 5 pop culture things on the planet. Like seriously, Bart Simpson was a cultural phenomenon, man, especially in the late 80s and early 90s. He had kids skateboarding that would never in their life think to grab a skateboard, carrying a slingshot around. Like kids didn't have slingshots before that. It was like Bart Simpson paved the way, man. And then, just the show itself, the funny things between the funny things between Homer, his hijinks that he would have, and kind of his idiot moments, and then all the supporting characters on there. My personal favorite Simpsons character of all time is Ralph Wiggum. That dude never ceased to amaze when he was on the screen. He was always hilarious. I always loved Ralph.
I'm in danger.
Dude,
The
quotables
meme
for
he is
days,
today.
man.
I mean, The Simpsons, it's such a staple in world culture, really. I mean, there are universities here in the US that have classes on The Simpsons and their impact on culture. I mean, that's how big of a monster this show is. And you're right, start on the Tracy Ullman show with some really bad drawn graphics. I think like Bart's hair was like 3 feet tall, and like you would impale yourself if you touched them. Um, and in a later episode of the podcast that we have planned, I was going to put Homer Simpson on my list, but I took him off for something else. But I love The Simpsons growing up. My parents wouldn't let me watch The Simpsons when I was younger because they didn't like how Bart treated his parents, and they didn't want me to learn from Bart on how to treat parents. When the movie came out, I was super excited for a movie. But I mean, The Simpsons has touched almost every aspect of cartoons out there now. I mean, Family Guy, another huge show. They did a crossover with The Simpsons, and then both of them crossed over into South Park. So, I mean, like, you had what was like the cartoon wars going on between these three shows. And I got to say, when Family Guy crosses into The Simpsons and Peter Griffin and Homer Simpson have the fight that usually Peter has with the chicken, that was some of the best. I think it's like 5 minutes of them fighting. Some of the best cartoon scenes I've ever seen is them fighting. I think they go in a plane, they crash the plane, they fall off a cliff. They're still fighting all the way through. I mean, Homer can hold his own against Peter Griffin. That's for damn sure. But I mean, so many good scenes out of The Simpsons. A lot of classic moments. The Tree House of Horrors, when Homer gets turned into a donut and he can't stop but eating himself. I mean, and of course you had Ned Flanders as the devil, right? The exact opposite of what his character is supposed to be. I always tuned in for the Tree House of Horrors. I will go back. It's on Disney Plus. I do go back and watch just the Tree House episodes because they're just so good.
My favorite one was the one when groundskeeper Willie was Freddy Krueger. Like, that was my favorite.
Yes.
That actually worked out too, because you can see that.
Oh yeah, you can see him killing kids with his rake.
Right. Let's not forget about the #1 talked about episode in Simpsons history, in my personal opinion, and that is Who Shot Mr. Burns.
The two-part.
This went on forever. It was in the middle. It was at the end of the season. Mr. Burns gets shot, dies on the little compass that was there in the middle of town with his arms stretched out with like S and a W, and everybody's like, oh, is it Margie Simpson? And I mean, it went on all summer long until the fall premiere came on, and then we found out it was just the little baby.
Oh, Maggie.
Yeah, Maggie.
Maggie's a lot more evil than you think. You watch the series, she's a lot more, like, she's a lot smarter than you think.
Right, this is a baby that never needs changed either, by the way.
And never talks, except once. She said one word.
And let's not forget about the fact that The Simpsons was also futuristic, and the fact that it predicted things that happen even today. So every time you hear somebody go, "Oh, that happened on The Simpsons 10 years ago," they're talking about the futuristic predictions that The Simpsons made.
Sure.
Such a good show, man. I really enjoyed that show. All right, Mr. Coob, your next one, sir.
All right. Oh, I'm looking through my list and trying to figure out which ones do I want to present. All right. So we're going to go into the realm, back into TGIF. We're talking about wholesome television. You know, a good show that made you laugh and then taught you a moral at the end. I'm talking about the crew of the Fullers. And I'm talking about Full House with Danny Tanner and the whole crew. So the concept of the show for our younger kids who have not watched Fuller House, which was the reboot, I guess the continuation, not really a reboot. It's a story of Danny Tanner. He's a father of 3 girls. His wife, their mother, dies. So his brother-in-law and his friend agree to move in and help him raise these girls. Now, we watched these kids grow up. We watched Michelle, played by Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, go from literally a baby to the teenage years. I mean, we watched this family grow, and you really felt like you were part of the Tanner family. Such a great show. Always comedy. And then at the end, the music would drop. It'd get, very melodious, and you'd have a heart to heart with one of the adults, and they would teach you something at the end. But they had a lot of great cameos. The Beach Boys came on set. Beach Boys being for our younger crew, the Beach Boys were a rock group back in the 70s and 80s who did a lot of like beach rock, like Kokomo, that you might know. But anyway, great show. I always love Full House. I did watch Fuller House when it came out on Netflix, but I always have a special place in my heart for Full House.
Yeah, Full House was on that same time, and I think they were back to back with Seventh Heaven at the time, because I think Seventh Heaven came on, and then it went Full House, or maybe it was Full House and the Seventh Heaven. But I know they were almost back to back with each other, and that was like feel good TV shows that everybody just liked watching. That at the end of the day, you were like, oh my god, this was such a great TV show, and it was sad when they ended it. I know a lot of people were crying. It made headline news. TV show was ending. You would watch these girls grow from literally little babies all the way to teenagers. This almost is like Modern Family-ish, where you watch those kids grow and you get connected to them. You really do feel like you're part of that show. And then it ends, and then you hear about all the drama that took place behind the scenes, and you're just like, wow, I would never guess that based on how the characters truly interact with each other.
Man, if you are, I know we say this a lot, but if you're a youngin', we know you weren't there. So before Elizabeth Olsen was known to you as the Scarlet Witch, she had two older sisters that were doing it long before and were way bigger in pop culture. I'm talking about these young ladies got so popular from their run on Full House, they created a whole line of VHS movies that so many little girls own the entire collections of, man. These little girls had their own adventures and would do their own thing, but the Full House show was the show to watch. If you were a kid who watched that show, you had your choice. Who'd you like? My favorite was always Uncle Jesse. Why? Uncle Jesse was the cool guy. He was the one who was doing it all. He was the musician. He was the cool guy. He would sit up there and have his thing going on with Aunt Becky. Now, we don't talk about Aunt Becky today. She's got a little bit of things going on. But back in the day, it was all about Uncle Jesse and Aunt Becky. But that show was awesome, man. So much fun. It, like you said, it provided the life lessons in every episode and just taught you a little something, man. It was all about watching this father, figure it out as he raised his girls, the girls coming into their own and doing their thing, and this family trying to figure out their whole dynamic together, all set in the city of San Francisco. Tremendous stuff, man. And when you think TGIF, Full House has got to be in there in the discussion. So, good stuff.
And can I say, we watched this family grow up. John Stamos, who played Uncle Jesse, even today does not look any different. That man does not age.
Yeah, the Stamos is a vampire for sure.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah. Interview with a vampire. Well, I guess that's going to bring me to my next one. Ladies and gentlemen, when I wake up in the morning and the alarm gives a warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time. By the time I grab my books and I give myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see the bus ride by. It's all right because I'm saved by the bell. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to Bayside High. When you talk about childhood shows, man, who did not love them some Zach Morris, man? He was the man. Zach Morris was cool to everyone that watched that show. I absolutely love Saved by the Bell. Saved by the Bell for me made me want to go to high school immediately because I thought high school, I told my wife a couple months ago, I said, Saved by the Bell pisses me off now because it gave me a false sense of what high school was going to be like. High school was not like Bayside High. There was no afternoon get together at the Max. There was none of that stuff. But it was amazing, man. If you watch this show, almost the same thing. You got to see Zach Morris. He's very young. We got to see him early in the beginning seasons of Saved by the Bell when he was in Miss Bliss's class. Then you get to see as he gets older, and then it's just Miss Bliss is no longer on the show, and it's just him and his friends and their hijinks as they try to outsmart Principal Belding. And it was amazing. If you watch this show, you really had a good time. Saved by the Bell also provided lessons for teenagers and kids coming into their own and just taught you some good things about life. And it was a good time all around.
I mean, Zach Morris had the coolest cell phone. I mean, back then, you didn't have cell phones. You had that huge brick with the long antenna. But that was so cool. It's like, oh my God, he has a portable phone. He's not attached to a wall or anything like that.
That's so true. And it didn't rotate either.
Nope, didn't rotate. He held it up to his ear, getting brain cancer probably. I mean, but Saved by the Bell again, one of those greatest shows that came out around our time. Yeah, you wanted to be part of that crew. You wanted to hang out with that whole crew, be their friend, hang out at the max. The one episode that always pops out into my mind, I think it's one of the more popular ones for teaching a moral lesson, is when Jessie gets hooked on those pills because she has to study for the test. And, you know, she goes to Zach to kind of help, and she's like, I'm fine. And then she just breaks down. And it talked about drug addiction. And I mean, it's just this great episode, like great acting by all of them. Right. She starts singing, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Right. And then I'm so scared. And she just breaks down. Great show. Went on to do Saved by the Bell college years, which wasn't really all that great. Yeah. And then they did like back to Saved by the Bell new class, where Austin Diamond, who played Screech, came back to the school. You had a whole new group that didn't do very well. And then they've recently rebooted it on the Peacock network. I saw the first episode because it was free. I don't subscribe to the Peacock streaming service. I was not impressed. I kind of wish I didn't watch it, but the original just can't be beat.
And that was the hardest thing for them, right? Is, you know, you had a great set of characters. You had Screech, you had Slater, where everybody wanted to be Slater because he was all buff and he was kind of a dick, but everybody liked him at the same time. It was a weird dynamic with them. And then you had Lisa, you had Zach, and, you know, you had this great crew. And Kelly, of course, Kelly was like everybody's favorite for looks-wise, right? She was on every magazine when they talked about Saved by the Bell. And this whole crew was just good. They were funny. I agree with you, D. It was a major catfish for high school, right? You think you're getting this great high school experience. You get to high school and you're like, wait, what? The only thing that the similar is here is the red lockers.
And the principal's a dick.
He's not here to help me. He wants to suspend me every time he talks about it. But no, I mean, it was a great TV show. Another one of those feel-good-isms. It did have a lot of good life lessons in it. For those of us who, you know, a prime example is the pill one, right? Where she was hooked on it. What was it, like Adderall or something? She was hooked on or some crap like that. But I mean, they did things then that wasn't common in TV shows for men. And is now common in TV shows today. And I think the biggest thing with Saved by the Bell is they should have continued to go, and they moved it kind of quick. And I think when they realized they had something, they're like, wow, then they just kind of drug out a little bit. And then it was like, wow, everybody who was used to this, and then we stopped and was like, wow, we got something we could do here. And they just kind of, the cast got older, and it ended up being kind of a messed up situation for them because they're like, wow, we kind of really screwed ourselves here. And so I feel like, you know, a lot of these TV shows that start off in high school, it's hard to maintain that because everybody's either going to get tired of the high school scene or the characters get old enough. You're like, they're not in high school anymore. Let's just stop. You know, One Tree Hill is a prime example of that, right? Starts off in high school just like Saved by the Bell and ends up when they're adults and everybody just doesn't buy into it afterwards. So it's always a hard balance to have. But going back and rewatching Saved by the Bell episodes, you still sit down and you kind of have your hands under your chin like this and you're just like, the show. And then again, you hear about all the drama that takes place after the show. You're like, what? All the drugs that were really being used. Absolutely bizarre. Good show, though. Great show. Can't go wrong watching it.
Dude, we love this show. I mean, as young men, we watched this show, and it was always about who do you got, Kelly, Lisa, or Jessie? You know, it was like which one would be your girl if you had the choice. And dude,
Right.
I think as young boys we all argued over this, man. We had so much fun. You'd all argued over who was going to be Zach, who was going to be, Slater. You know, because of Slater, I think I went on a couple year streak where I was sitting chairs backwards, to the back of the chair. Like that was like my thing, man. Like you talking about you talk about John Stamos, dude. I'll raise you a Mario Lopez, somebody who hasn't aged. This dude looks exactly the damn same as when he filmed the show. He's always been
Yeah.
swole and cut, always had the same hair. Like, dude looks exactly the same, man. Like, Saved by the Bell had a monster run in the 90s, man. And I didn't
Oh yeah.
know anybody from, probably mid elementary up through high school that didn't watch that show, man. We all loved it, man. It was really fun.
All right, you brought it up, D, so we have to ask. Which girl?
Dude, I was a Jessie girl, man. I love me some Jessie. I don't
JD?
know. It was the leather coat, man.
Kelly, man, I've always had a theme for the way Kelly looked. Yeah, you couldn't pull me on any of the other two. I mean, it was Kelly 100%.
I got to go Kelly too. I think that was my choice.
I mean, I
Or Lisa.
had a thing for Lisa for a while, but it was something about the way she always treated Screech that I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Right? Yeah.
She was
yeah.
mean to Screech.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
she really
I
was.
couldn't do it. So it was always Jessie for me. But that was mine. Mr. JD, on to the next one, sir.
All right, we're going to keep the next two. One of mine are going to be kind of on the dark side of the 90s and 80s. And that is all the scary things that we can imagine ended up happening, right? In fantasy, of course. And the one that we're going to talk about was a cultural phenomenon that drug throughout the 80s, into the 90s, into the 2000s. It never died. And the reason it never died is because it had such good storylines. And yes, while the TV show itself died, it spawned movies. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the X-Files. We had Mulder, we had Scully. They were investigating, alien sightings, vampires, zombies, you name it. We've investigated it with them. We had Mulder who wanted to believe because his sister was abducted. We had Scully who didn't want to believe because she's a scientist. And eventually, what happens is they both believe. No, but it was really good. The storylines of these were absolutely fantastic. As a smaller kid, these actually kind of scared me at times because I was like, what? And the storyline, and now this is before scary movies got real. But you were just like, just the weird stuff that took place, the creepiness of it. It was always dark scenes. It was always them trying to find the truth. And then sometimes the people just disappeared and they were like, Mueller saw it. And he's like, no, they're out there. And then you're like, are they really out there? So no, this show was great. I don't know anybody who didn't watch the X-Files at least once. The movie's kind of trash, but they kind of closed the end of the series to help everybody kind of get over the fact that it was over. But nonetheless, great movie and TV show.
Another show with a great tagline, right? The truth is out there.
Truth is out there.
Hell of a tagline to put in the commercial, man. I mean, like the way that the show played, my favorite thing about it was the variety of the show. So it felt like a scripted, like paranormal show basically, or some sort of, unsolved mystery show is what it felt like. A scripted version, and this was like the first show I remember my father being like, get the hell off the TV. I'm watching the X-Files. Like my dad was hooked on the X-Files for years. Like this man, if it was on, if you didn't sit down and be quiet, you had to get out. That was his show, man. The X-Files was an amazing show. David Duchovny completely murdered it on that show. He would not have starred in Californication if not for his run on the X-Files, which is also a hell of a show too. But dude, the X-Files that was another cultural phenomenon, man. When it came out, I remember it kind of put Fox like in this upper stratosphere, as far as good shows. So man, X-Files was really good.
I mean, I never actually watched a lot of the X-Files when I was younger. I went back and watched them as an adult, and I mean, it stands the test of time. So, like, even coming back after we have all these other shows that have come out since then, it still stands up. Um, the movies, I think I saw one. I think they came out with like 2 movies or something like that. I think I only saw one of them. But I mean, I love sci-fi. I love alien stuff. I mean, this show was right up my alley, and just watching Scully go from you're crazy, you're psycho, there's no such thing as aliens, to being a full believer. It was a really cool arc to kind of watch go throughout the series. But it's another one that's gonna just be one of those legendary shows.
Actually went back and started rewatching the X Files probably about a couple of months ago. Then I found Stargate and I put it on hold. But watching him from the very beginning, you see how much Scully does not want to be with Mulder. I mean, nobody wanted to be with Mulder. He was an outcast. He was a loser. Nobody wanted to be with him. He's in the pits of the FBI, and then you watch the show develop and go and go, and you're just like, God, this is such a good show. And you're right, it does stand the test of time, at least in my opinion.
We brought in government conspiracies. I mean, it brought in all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, it did.
All right, Mr. Koo, your next one, sir.
All right. I need to talk about a trio. They're kooky, they're zany, they have baloney in their slacks. I'm talking about the Animaniacs. So this was a cartoon about the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot, who lived in the Warner Brother Water Tower, the iconic Warner Brother Tower, on the lot of the Warner Brothers studio, and they just got into some crazy shenanigans. But what came out of the show are some of the best, believe it or not, songs I have ever heard. I still know a lot of the countries of the world, thanks to Yakko singing the countries of the world. I can name most of the capitals of the states due to Wacko's Capitals of the State song. But going back and watching this as an adult, there's a lot of adult humor in there. I'm talking a lot of adult humor that you do not catch as a kid. You just don't get it. They recently brought it back. They brought it back for a season, and I think it's already been renewed for more. But you also had the epic Pinky and the Brain come out of this show. They were kind of a side story about a genius rat and a really stupid rat trying to take over the world. Same thing they do every night. Try to take over the world. I loved this show growing up. It was definitely a cartoon I rushed to see. I wanted to watch it. When they rebooted it, I just binged it all at once. I mean, I'm talking like 2-3 months ago. They just rebooted it. I loved Animaniacs.
This was the show like that I remember was one of the first shows that I remember as a kid catching the adult jokes in there. And I remember my mom pointing this out like, should y'all be watching this? It was like, yeah, it's on, Fox. Like, okay, it was in the kids lineup, so she was like, all right. But it was like one of the ones like it did have adult jokes in there, but it was hilarious, man. Wacko, Jacko, and Dot, just hijinks every episode. And then they had the smaller spin-off cartoons in there with, Pinky and the Brain, Plucky the Duck, Baby Plucky, one of my favorite characters from there, man. Like, dude, it had so many funny things. And that show was that was another one, man. Like, Fox also had a kids run that was pretty damn epic during their time. And Animaniacs was right on the front of it all, man. That was a great show.
Yeah, no, Animaniacs. I don't know anybody who didn't watch Animaniacs. Like you said, it was a kids iconic show. People watched it. People loved it. They were always getting into shenanigans, always doing stupid stuff, and it was just one of those feel good shows you just watched. No purpose to it, right? There wasn't any like great storyline. You didn't have to watch another episode to understand what's going on in this episode. It was just a new episode every time about something different, and they were fun to watch. They got into trouble a lot of times. Like I said, Pinky and the Brain were introduced in there, and if you don't know anything about Pinky and the Brain, shame on you. Go watch Pinky and the Brain. At least one episode. But no, the what?
I'll say with the reboot, they brought back Pinky and the Brain too.
Did they really? Man, all right. So I'm probably gonna make my way over here and watch this. But yeah, no. I mean, Animaniacs was definitely where it was at if you were a kid watching cartoons.
I mean, one of my favorite jokes now, going back and understanding the jokes as an adult, is their they're detectives and they're trying to solve a crime. And Yakko tells Dot, "Yeah, I need you to go look for fingerprints." And she runs off and she comes back holding Prince, the singer. And it's like, this cartoon character of Prince. She goes, "Here, I found Prince." And he goes, "No, fingerprints." And they just kind of look at each other and go, "I don't think so." And like when you substitute Prince with Prince, fingerprints, it's like, ooh, no, that's not what I mean.
Show was crazy, man. That was insane. Good show, though, man. Really good show. Well, that's going to bring me to my next one, and I got to ask you, do you have it? Guts. Ladies and gentlemen, you talking about kid shows. This was the kid show. This was the one that I wanted to go on so bad. Of all the kids' game shows that they had, this was the one I knew. If you put me on this show, I'm going to kick everybody's ass. Because I trusted my athleticism and my skill that much. I just knew. I had the aggro crack down to a science. I was ready to go on there. I was training for it. I was ready. I knew that I would dominate if I ever went on this show. And ladies and gentlemen, this was a kid's version, basically, of American Gladiators. Kids would be able to go on this show, do physical challenges where you're, running up conveyor belts or, climbing these rock mountains and stuff. And you had to compete against other kids. You had to jump with a bungee cord attached to your back and shoot basketballs and all that stuff. And I knew that I could do all of these things and would kick ass. Also, you could, at the end, win a piece of the aggro crag and hold it above your head, like every other kid that had went on that show. I wanted it so bad, and Guts was amazing.
I wanted a piece of that mountain so damn bad.
Who didn't want a piece of the mountain? Come on.
Yeah, the crag, the mega crag, the super aggro crag. I mean, they just kept making this mountain bigger and tougher and harder. And I watched that show saying I can do all of that. I was a little more athletic back then compared to now, but I loved Guts. Mike O'Malley, such a great host for the show. He had that energy that kept the kids going. I might need to go back and watch episodes. Those were just Guts was the pinnacle of kid game shows back then.
Yeah, God, Guts was such a good show. It spawned off a video game on Super Nintendo as well. Not as good, but it was still pretty decent. It was one of the first ones that they actually spawned off of a TV show to make it worthwhile. And while it wasn't the most successful of it all, it was still really fun. Who doesn't remember the mountain? I mean, golly. And then all the games in between there where they were like in the pond trying to jump through little hoop things. And I was just like, God, this show, you want to talk about nostalgia, this is one that hooks you. If you remember that, whew, what a good show, man. I mean, the kids were always so happy. They had the little platform, too. There wasn't this everybody wins a trophy thing. There was third, second, and first. And first place held that mountain. Won, and you all sucked, right? And it was just such a good TV show.
Right on, right on. All right, Mr. JD Hugh, your last one, please, sir.
Hold on, guys. I am not getting any kind of audio. Okay. There we go. Fixed it. Sorry.
Edit that out.
Technical difficulties there, boys.
Leaving it in. Leaving
it in. Do you need the clap for the...
Yep, I got it. All right, so the last one on the list is probably the scariest one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tales of the Crypt. I say keeper because that's how I always remember the show, but it was the Tales of the Crypt. And this was along the same lines as Are You Afraid of the Dark? All right? And they were scary stories that took place. Tales of the Crypt was the adult version. Are You Afraid of the Dark was the kids' version. And they were on almost back to back with each other a little bit, probably about an hour apart because they waited for the kids to go to bed. And there were stories that were told of Tales of the Crypt that were creepy. I always remember, and I probably shouldn't have been watching this at my age, definitely like 5 or 6, but where they were telling the story and it was about Santa Claus. And it was actually the ex-husband trying to get in the house, and he was dressed as Santa Claus. He was trying to kill the wife, and eventually he gets into the window upstairs with the little kid, and she brings him downstairs, and he has this axe that he's dragging with him, and she goes, "Look, Mommy, it's Santa Claus." And you're just like, "Oh, oh." Loved this show to death. Creepy as hell. Always really kind of twisted stories. Gave me nightmares on several occasions. But still, great TV content. The time especially.
So you're talking about the actual live action, right? Because they made a cartoon, but I'm assuming you mean the original live action with the creepy as hell puppet of the Crypt Keeper.
Yes, where he's in the coffin, he goes, ah!
Yeah.
And let me tell you a story about... Yes, that one.
So Tales from the Crypt, that version, was my older brother's favorite show. And he would always call me in to watch it with him because mom and dad wouldn't let me watch it. It was way too creepy, way too scary. And he would sneak me in. It's like, hey, come watch it with me. You're right. I shouldn't have been watching that show at my age. I think I was like 7 or 8 at the time. Creepy as hell show. You go back and watch them, and you're like, really? Well, I was really scared by that. But loved Tales from the Crypt now. Did not enjoy it back then, yet I kept going back because, you know, my older brother wanted me to go watch it. So got to hang out with the older brother. Going back now, I love Tales from the Crypt. I love that little puppet now, the little creepy puppet. But great show.
The Crypt Keeper he was one of the OGs of horror, man. Like, doesn't get his praises, but he was the ultimate storyteller. I remember having to convince my parents, I asked them, could I watch it? And they basically said, if you're scared, no, you won't be able to watch it. I had to promise them I won't be scared. I'm going straight to bed afterwards. I just want to watch it. So they allowed me to, and I did. And this was the show, man. Like you said, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Both of them aired on Saturdays. Are You Afraid of the Dark would be on Nickelodeon, airing probably around like 8 o'clock.
Yep.
9 o'clock on HBO would be Tales from the Crypt. So it'd be watch one and then watch the other. And it was like night and day. You go from like the kids in the Midnight Society telling their stories to the Crypt Keeper telling these adult stories. And it was tremendous, man. You talking about, it was different stories every week, and it was awesome. It spawned some movie spinoffs, like Demon Knight is probably the most famous one, with Jada Pinkett and Billy Zane. But it was awesome, man. And Tales from the Crypt was a good time back in the day if you were a young kid.
Oh, yeah. I love that show.
Mr. Coov, your last one, please, sir.
All right, to wrap up my pick, I think it's Morphin time. I'm talking about the original, the first Power Rangers. Not all these new ones, not the Ninja Zords and the one where there are race cars. I don't know. I lost track. I'm talking the original. I mean the Tyrannosaurus dinosaur for the Red Ranger. I haven't pulled up here, so I don't remember them all. The Saber-tooth tiger for the Yellow Ranger. The Mastodon for the Black Ranger. Triceratops. And the Pterodactyl for Pink. And how can we forget Tommy Oliver with the Dragon Zord? Later, the White Tiger Zord. But I loved the Power Rangers growing up. I was probably on the back end of their demographic. I was probably just getting maybe aged out, but I loved them anyway. I learned later that what we saw was actually like they filmed a quarter of the actual show. So like whenever they're in their ranger suits and they're fighting Rita Repulsa and they're fighting the demons or whatever, and they're in their Zord fighting the big monsters, that was all a Japanese show. And they just took it and put it on the screen. They only filmed them outside of their suits. So when you see them at their high school and they're not morphed into the Rangers, that they filmed. Everything else was a Japanese show that they just cut and pasted.
Wow.
So that's how they made the Power Rangers. There's another podcast called How It's Made, and they talk about the making of the Power Rangers and how this producer just bought the rights. He went to Japan, said, I want the rights to this show, and he put it on American TV, and that's how he did it. So, I mean, he made a lot of money off of it, didn't have to put a lot in, just filmed them outside of their suits. And I think he refilmed Zordon because that was a different actor. But, I mean, Burr's such a huge franchise for everybody. The first Power Ranger movie is still my favorite one. Where they get their new Zords and they turn in, Tommy goes from the Green Ranger to the White Ranger and he gets the White Tiger. Oh, I love the Power Rangers. What can I say?
Yeah, talk about a show where I just, it was Power Rangers was on at the same time that it went like Barney Power Rangers. It was this weird like dynamic. But how do you not love the Power Rangers? I mean, it's morphin' time. Everybody knows it, right? And the little robot that eventually came out of it, and I mean, it was just such a good TV show. If you were a kid, anytime in the early '90s, you were watching Power Rangers, hands down.
For the benefit of those who can see the video, I'm going to show you a little something. This
I know what he's
is
done.
my PC. And that in there is the Black Ranger Zack from the original Power Rangers, along with custom graphics card plate with the Mastodon and Black Ranger on there, and then the Funko Pop Zack the Black Ranger. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the show of shows for my childhood. I would come home from school and threaten to kick the asses of my siblings if they dare touch the TV when it was morphin' time. You either jump on the bus and ride along with me on this ride, or you're going to get ran over by the bus. I love Power Rangers to death. When you're talking about some of probably the quintessential show of my childhood, this is probably the one that I would mark as number one if I had to choose. I absolutely love the Power Rangers, everything about it. The martial arts, the kick-assery, the team itself, these kids who are all friends in high school at Angel Grove High, and they do their thing. And then, what do? They introduce a character by the name of Tommy Oliver. And he comes in, and he's got all the attitude in the world. And what does he do? He morphs and he kicks the dog crap out of the entire Power Rangers team. Jumps into their Zord, beats their behinds, and kicks them out. And just goes in. And he becomes one of the team, and it just is on from there, man. Like, this show was phenomenal back in the day. If you were watching this with your friends, you knew what it was like to go to school the next day, especially when they had the entire Green Ranger run when he was evil. Like during that time, what it was like on the playground to discuss with your friends. Come to school the next day and like, did you see Power Rangers yesterday? Like, yes, I saw it. And then you would talk about it. Dude, what kids know today as the Power Rangers is nothing compared to what it was back in the day. Fox they had their hands on gold during that time, man. What a run. What a hell of a show. And like you said, the first movie, I can quote the entire Ivan Ooze dialogue, start to finish, dude. I love that movie so much, man. I remember seeing it in the theater several times and watching the VHS until the ribbon just burned out on that bad boy, man. I love it.
I think it's streaming now.
Definitely.
I mean, Tommy Oliver, his character, I think is the longest running Power Ranger. Like, he's joined other ones, and I pulled up a list just to see what the character Tommy Oliver's been in. He was the Green Ranger and the White Ranger. He was the Zeo Ranger V Red, so he was a Red Ranger. He was the Red Turbo Ranger, and then the Dino Thunder Black Ranger. So I mean, he's been almost all over the spectrum of colors here. I mean, there's an actor that found his niche and he just stuck with it and did not leave.
Yeah, we've talked about typecasting on here before, and I mean, he's somebody who embraced it. He understands that fans see him as the Green Ranger and the White Ranger and so on and so forth. And so he was like, all right, I'm just going to lean into it. So when you look at, his name is Jason David Frank. When you look at him, he is at every con that you can think of, Morphicon, like Comic-Con, wherever there is a con where he can meet and greet with fans and do something that involves fans, he is there, and he is always cool. Everybody has such cool stories about meeting him. They say he's the most awesome dude, and it's because he literally embraced what it was. He knows that without even asking, the Green Ranger was the most popular dude to ever come out of that show, the Green/White Ranger. So why not lean into it and let these fans come and have their moment with you? I mean, he's making money doing it. Why not have fun with it? And he's been doing it for like 2 decades now of just touring and having a blast, man. So I dig it, man. I love that show so much.
There's a YouTube video out there. I think it was a fan created Power Ranger, kind of a pitch like for it to be a new show. And it was a original Power Rangers, where are they today sort of thing. And it was this dark, gritty, like half the Rangers turned evil, and they were all hunting Tommy because Tommy was the last good one left. And they had kidnapped the Pink Ranger, and Tommy was trying to find her. So like he battles the Black Ranger, he battles the Blue Ranger, and like it was like dark, like bloody, and definitely not a kid-friendly version. But I watched that, and Jason Frank played the Green Ranger. He was still in that role. And I watch it wanting more. I'm like, turn this into a TV show, turn this into a movie. Like your demographic of the original Power Rangers grew up, catch up, and let's keep this thing going. But never came anywhere. It was just kind of I think it was like a 13-minute little mini episode, but it was actually really cool.
Yeah, the Bat in the Sun YouTube page used to do like the versus things where they take like characters from all these fantasy realms and have them versus to see who would win. And they would let fans vote on it, and whoever the fans voted, they would film them as the winner. So I remember they did the White Ranger versus Scorpion, and he actually came and played the White Ranger in there for them. And he's also done it when they brought the Green Ranger in there too. He's played him in there too. So because they did like the Green Ranger versus Ryu from Street Fighter, and it was like something cool. So Jason David Frank, he does not shy away from jumping in some fan stuff, to play the character again. He's like, look, I'm the Green Ranger. Screw you guys. I'll be back to do it. And what I've got to say, one of the biggest injustices in this entire thing was the remake of the Power Rangers movie they did a couple years ago, and that sorry cameo they did for Tommy and Kimberly. I was so disappointed with that little 2-second cameo. And then they brought out the cut cameo that they had, that they did make the movie. That was way better. It would have been a whole lot better to just give them that cameo instead of that flash the camera at the new Power Rangers. Like, that was crap.
I mean, play your fan service, right? I mean, we all watched the new Power Ranger movie, our generation, because of the original. Do us the fan service. Making Goldar, I can't remember his name, the big gold dude, make him physically made out of gold at the end. I'm like, no, he just had gold armor and he got big. I don't need to see this liquid, creature that was huge. But you're right. The cameo of the most popular Power Ranger is 1 second on the screen. I'm like, that's not doing fan service.
Yeah, they talked about it. They said the director was against the cameo because he wanted it to be all about the new Power Rangers. But then he said after he watched the movie and he realized the biggest reaction from the audience all night was that 1 second clip of Kimberly and Tommy. And he apologized to Jason David Frank and basically was like, I'm sorry, I should have, done something bigger with you guys. And that's what it was. So, but Power Rangers, tremendous show, man. Absolutely phenomenal.
And to bring this full circle, there was an episode where the Power Rangers fight the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but then they team up at the end.
Well, that brings me to my last one, and this is arguably the greatest cartoon of all time. It's been argued back and forth. It's given us probably one of the greatest iterations of this character, live or cartoon, that we've ever seen. If you played the games, you'll know the voice. And that is Batman, the animated series. This was a show that took off like a rocket ship. It's streaming now on HBO Max. My 3-year-old daughter watches this show. She likes to watch the Batman animated series on HBO Max. This was a cartoon that was ahead of its time. If you are a fan of the character Harley Quinn, you owe your praises to this show because this is where she comes from. She was so good on the show that they made her into an actual character in the comics, and that brought her forward to live action today with Margot Robbie starring as her. This show was amazing. You got Mark Hamill as the Joker. You got Kevin Conroy as Batman. If you've played the Arkham series games, you'll recognize his voice. He still plays Batman in the games. It is awesome, dude. This was the show that introduced you to all the Batman rogue gallery and all of how that was my favorite thing about the show was the variety in villains. They didn't just continue to run back the same people. You got to see his entire rogue gallery. Everybody from the big ones down to the little ones. And I'm not talking about Batman Beyond. I'm talking about Batman the Animated Series. Batman Beyond was good, but when you talk about great, it's Batman the Animated Series, man. Good stuff.
So we talked about how X-Men was my introduction to comics and Marvel. Batman the Animated Series was my introduction to DC. That's what got my love for the other half of the comic book families. Uh, they had a Superman animated series that came out a little bit afterwards, and they had some crossover between the two, which was awesome. But that Batman animated series was the best. And I didn't know it was Mark Hamill as the Joker till years later. And just, I had a new appreciation for it. But that show set up, I mean, Batman is still my favorite comic book hero. Just everything about him, from him getting his start to Batman Beyond when he's an old man, and even the story afterwards with Justice League. I love Batman, and this show is what started it all for me. Then I got into the movies, and I got into other TV series that came out for it. But this is it. This is the OG. This is what started it all.
Yeah, same here. This is the very first one that I ever watched to do anything to do with DC comics or anything of that nature. Now, this is where it ended for me as well until recently, when I became a little bit more of a nerd. But up to this point, I watched this, thought it was a great TV show. The obviously hooked you because it's cartoons. I did watch the live series ones that they had, where it was the real life characters doing it. You heard the bam, and it just said bam, when he punched them. But this was the first time that I actually got into it as a kid, and of course it was TV show, it was animated. It came on the time that we were all watching cartoons after school. I think it came on at like 4:30 or something, and that's when everybody was there watching cartoons after homework, of course. And it was just a good TV show. This is actually, in my mind, where the original Joker that I expected to see before Heath Ledger started really kind of taking that Joker into a new direction for me. But this is where I always thought the Joker should look like, as opposed to the character that Heath Ledger ended up playing.
I mean, you look at the show, and I mean, it's been argued that it gave us the best Batman and Joker. I mean, people have argued this. I mean, Mark Hamill did that good of a job. Like you said, nobody knew that was Mark Hamill for years, you know. And so to find out that Luke Skywalker is the Joker, you know, I mean, he's more embracing of it now in his older age. He talks a lot about it, and at the cons and stuff, he's played the character for, fans and stuff, and done, things for him in person. But dude, back then that was huge news when that came out, man. And he was awesome as the Joker. And like you said, it set the bar really high for the live action Jokers that followed. And dude, this show was amazing, man, during its time. Like you said, they did a crossover with Superman, which gave me one of my favorite Batman moments ever. Superman has Batman like kind of jacked up on the roof, and he uses his X-ray vision and sees it's Bruce Wayne. And then Superman goes home that night and he looks out of his window, and what does he see? He sees Batman sitting across on a balcony, and Batman is sitting there, and he realizes Batman slipped a tracker onto his suit and watched him go home. And what does Batman do? Looking through some binoculars, he looks at him and gives him a wink like, yeah, got you back. One of my favorite Batman moments ever. We got to see Clark Kent be absolutely jealous that Bruce Wayne comes to town and Lois Lane is gushing all over him and all this stuff. So, man, I used to love that show, man. And Kevin Conroy absolutely nailed it as Batman. Nailed it. Miss?
It kept, oh, sorry. It kept that dark tone too, right? Because Gotham is dark. It's meant to be dark. It's a dark city. There's a lot of crime. That's the underbelly that Batman lives in. And, Batman only comes out at night. And I love that they kept that, because like you get into some of the later Batman movies, and especially the two with like Mr. Freeze and the Riddler, they're like bright and shiny and Neo everything. It's like, that's not Gotham to me. And like tying it back to the games with the same voice actors, they kept Gotham dark, and that's really what it was. And I love that the animated series really like played off that, and to show Gotham's not a town you really want to be in. Yeah, Batman's making it better. He's doing his best, but overall, not a great town. Go to Metropolis.
Yeah, it's a 1-star and not recommend.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. JDU, is that it? Are we done?
Yep, that's our nostalgia episode.
Man. Well, that is it for the topic this week. And so I didn't tell the fellas this because I wanted to spring it on them live. But next week's topic is going to be shows that made your childhood 2.0. Because there's so many to choose from, I knew that we would probably need another episode to get through them all. So next week's episode is 2.0. So we're going to be talking more of these shows next week. And dude, it should be a blast again. But that is it for the topic this week. So tell us, what show made your childhood? You know, what was the show that did it for you back then and holds that place in your heart? And you can do that by sending us an email at podcastplayedup@gmail.com. Played Up Podcast on Twitter. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Played Up Podcast. You can listen each week on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you do listen to the pod, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us out and we enjoy the feedback. That is going to be it for episode 13 of the Played Up Podcast. I'm D High. That's the Coov. That's JD Hugh. We'll catch you next time. And as always, don't forget to play up.